Yo, this your boy Simon One Punch Card, Mr. Everywhere when you never there, and we live on an Untold interview.
Got my man One Punch in the building, man. Welcome to Untold, man.
Yes, yes.
Listen, we're gonna dive right into it, man. Just take us from the beginning, from your upbringing and everything.
I grew up in the rough streets of South Philadelphia. I lost both of my parents at an early age. Dad was killed the day I was born. I found my mom at the age of 5, 6, and she was succumbed to drug use, overdose.
Okay. And at that point, was you staying with family members? Did they take you in?
Yeah, we struggled from pillar to post. We were different family members, and he was homeless at one point in time. And then my grandma found us and nurtured us back to health. And shortly after, started excelling.
Okay. And did that lead into, to the boxing era?
Yeah, boxing came a little later. It was the fact of me always fighting. And each time, the unique thing about me fighting, I always draw the crowd. And the crowds got bigger and bigger. And then one day, it was over like 200 kids outside, and it was swinging book bags, and it was saying, "One punch is fighting, one punch is fighting." And my uncle heard the commotion. He came out, and he broke up the fight and pulled me in the house. He said, "Man, why you always fighting? You fight so much, you need to go to a gym." So we went to a boxing gym, and I never looked back.
At what age did you start your first fight in the ring?
12 years old, 12 going on 13.
Okay.
And from there, it took me all the way up into the 96 Olympics, where I competed for, the alternate. And on the eve of me going to the 96 Olympics, I was derailed because something happened to me in my life.
Okay. I know earlier you had mentioned that your uncle had guided you to the Joe Frazier gym.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, my uncle told me, "Hey, if you can fight so well, you need to go to a boxing gym." And subsequently, that was the very first time I ever traveled all by myself. I was about 11 years old. So he gave me instructions at the time where I was living at. Hey, catch this bus to Broad Street, get on the sub, and from getting on the sub, get off on Broad and Lehigh, run a half a block up the street, get to Broad and Glenwood. You'll see a gas station. If you go past a bridge, overpass of a bridge, you're going past it too much. And then I saw this big bay window, and just like that, I saw a ring, and it was like heaven. People in there boxing. I stayed at this window for about 20, 30 minutes, gathering myself. I'm a little kid looking back and forth, and wow, just in awe, and got myself up because I thought when I go in here, I'm gonna have to fight. And when I went in, I'm like, "Hey," it's like, "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I want to box." He said, "1 second." There's a guy jumping rope, and he was training him in the mirror, and he finished with him, and he walked to the back. Followed him slightly. He came back out. He hands me a paper. The paper, I put it in my pocket, and I said, "Now can I box?" He said, "No, you got to get that paper signed, and then you can box." I said, "Today?" He was like, "Nah, not today. It's late today." He's like, "But you bring it back tomorrow, you can box." Hurried up and ran home. Never been so happy. My life. Got back on the side, went back home. Got home, tell my family, excited, wanted to tell them about the experience. They folded up the paper, put it right on the refrigerator. "Get ready for dinner. You can wash your hands." I'm like, wow. So I'm like, we've had dinner. Can we talk about it? And I ain't want to really elaborate on it and everything. So later on, I'm speaking to my sister, and she really didn't. She was against it because kids always have a mixture of opinion. One minute they want to box, basketball, karate, football. Really, you undecisive, right? And so, later on, I found out like, my sister was keeping it from me, and I wrote a letter to my uncle. Their uncle, they won't let me box. My first letter I think I ever wrote. And I wrote it in pencil and I mailed it to him. And my uncle he traveled. He went to different places. So I'm waiting for like 3 weeks. Every time, the phone ring, I'm hoping it's him, and then one day he came. I spoke to him about it, told him about the issue. And he spoke to my family and told him, like, listen, you gotta really let him, box. And they was like, I don't want him to get hit in his face and do this. So I'm fighting every day in school or on the street anyway. And my area was rough. So they agreed to allow me to do it. By that time, I found a gym that was closer to me. It was in a local rec center. They took a liking to me. One trainer took me under his wing for about like 3 months, but then he took me to a bigger trainer in an area. He trained some of the greatest fighters, and he took a liking to me. And then that's what kicked it off.
In school, like how did you, deal with the rest of the kids and knowing that, that you starting to box?
Well, I hid it from him for about 6 to 8 months. I hid it from him from 6 to 8 months. It was tough. And one day, I would always put my gym equipment in a book bag and go home, do my chores, and run back to the gym. So it was wintertime when I first started. But as the time commenced, it was about April, May, and then the weather started breaking, and I'm walking past this basketball court, and the guys will always see me. They're like, man, what happened? You got caught up in school? Yeah, after school suspension, after school detention. Yeah, yeah. So now it's June. They're like, man, you don't got no after school detention. Where you going? I said, man, I'm going to the gym. Oh, we want to go with you. What gym you going to? You on the YMCA? Hold up. They throwing the ball down. I said, no, you can't come. And he's like, why? But I'm going to the gym. I'm going to the boxing gym. Man, you don't box. I'm showing them my gym bag. Man. So now the trainers told me, said, listen, I'll catch you out here in the street boxing or slap tapping or anything. You ain't going to be able to box no more. Because this is a privilege. You got advantage. I don't want you to hurt nobody out here. So I said, no, I can't do that. And I don't want, be out here slap tapping. Man, you ain't boxing. So then when they really found out, they was like, wow, that's crazy. That's cool.
So you going through the training, keeping the secret. Once the secret was out, how did your friends, how did your peers take you after that? Like, what was that transition?
Say that the last part again.
How did your friends deal with you after that? After they found out that you was actually really doing the boxing?
Well, the end result, I think they embraced it, and at that time, I appreciated the fact of all the OGs in the neighborhood. They embraced it. I think it was only two fighters in my neighborhood that ever boxed. Actually, it was me and this guy named Gerald Nobles, and he was probably about 17 or 16. He was 16 at the time, and I was 13 at the time, 12 at the time. So, and he was the first time I ever got into a Mercedes Benz. He had a 190 Benz with momos on it, and he playing loud music, and we was riding through the neighborhood, and he would take me to the gym. I would carry his gym bag, and later on in life, so we was the only two fighters in our neighborhood, and he was a big time guy, somebody I looked up to. We both didn't really have no parents. He had probably his mom, and I didn't have both of my parents. So he was like the big homie, and we all come from like a fragmented family structure later on. So we only really listened to each other. I was probably as good as he was good to me because, I kept him focused from not getting caught up in the streets, and he kept me focused from not getting caught up in the streets.
So you think you boxing, did that kind of like, was that your therapy with everything that you went through as a kid?
Yes, I will say, well, early on, we didn't have mental health. We didn't know what mental health was. So, and I would openly say this, when you're in a dark moment in life or a dark time, nobody really understands it's a dark time. We just really trying to get to the other end of the tunnel where it's light. So boxing was that vehicle. That was the light. I was dealing with real personal issues at home and, abuse and different things. And the only safe haven I had was the boxing.
So how was it on your first fight? You said you was around 12.
I think the first fight was real interesting because I'll tell you something. I thought about my sister boyfriend, and I'll say why. Because when I first learned how to box and started fighting, my sister was telling her boyfriend, "Yeah, my brother know how to fight, and he boxed, right?" And he was older; he was in his 20s. So that brewed. That was what my trainer was talking about. That brewed a deep embedded envy. So one day, him and my sister got in a fight or an argument, and I came in and exceeded, and he punched me in my eye, you know, and we was like, I don't care about that boxing shit, you know what I mean? And we started fighting, you know, and he really did it because he wanted to discourage me. He really wanted to do it because he had the deep embedded rooted. He ain't gonna beat me, see what I'm saying? And that was some of the trials and tribulations I had to endure because that's what the trainer told me and warned me about. Like, look, once you identify that you're a fighter or you're a boxer, then there's going to be people out here in this world that's going to try you. And that's what happened. My sister told him about it, and they got into a thing, but he was always mindful of me. And he said, he ain't going to beat me. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? They got into arguments. What's going on? And he hauled off and sucker punched me and blanked my eye. I went to school like that. DHS got involved. It was real crazy. They take me away. So when I thought about that and all the trauma I was dealing with, that was probably a week before me going in and having my first amateur fight. So all I saw was him and what he did to me. And that guy got it. You know what I mean? So that's what happened.
Who's some of the fighters in growing up that you were watching closely?
Sweet Pea Whitaker, Pernell Whitaker, Iron Mike Tyson. They were the ones that my style was patterning after. And these was guys that I looked up to. Later on, it was Roy Jones Jr., Trinidad, stuff like that. I was boxing Bernard, started boxing Bernard at like 15 years old. And I was boxing Sweet Pea at about 15 too. And that was me getting prepped for the Olympics, So, yeah.
Speaking of Iron Mike Tyson, recently we seen him in the ring with YouTuber, influencer Jake Paul.
Yes.
What was your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I thought that everybody won. Mike didn't get hurt. He looked good, to a certain extent. He walked away with $20 million. Now, to the average fan, they were disappointed because they knew Mike could do better. I was a little disappointed because, everybody have this thing in their mind about what Mike is and the old Mike Tyson. But I understand we're in a new age and a new generation, and this is different. This is entertainment almost as well. Um, and I'll tell you why those things was a connection. I started training back during when COVID started. And that was my opening key because I always had this thing. It was a period in my life. Boxing was all I had. But then I got to hit a brick wall when they took boxing away from me. And so when boxing was taken away from me, I had to utilize other things in my mind to keep me going because that was a period in line. That was a challenge. That was probably one of the most biggest fights I had because that had been a vehicle for so long that I depended on, and that was a challenge for me. I went through some personal things. I went to jail and they took away boxing. When I went to prison, the judge stipulated me to a facility where it wasn't no boxing. At one point in time, they had boxing in a prison, and then at that time, right at the breaks of me going to prison, they took the boxing out. They still had it in certain ones, but they was like, yo, the stipulation. They didn't want me in there.
Now, what led you to prison?
On the eve of me uh, going to the Olympics, somebody subsequently broke into my home where me and my elderly grandma resided at. And out of fear for the safety of my life and my family life, fired at the intruders, only hoping to scare them off. Later on in life, found out somebody got hurt. And later on in life, boom, found out somebody later on died and sent me to prison for a decade. 10 years of my life on the eve of me trying out for the 96 Olympics. And, in hindsight, that was a period in my life that, was dark, and it was a fear factor. And I'll tell you why later on. The fear factor was you just getting your life back together. All your life early on, you come into this world naturally being a fighter, fighting against the depression of losing both of your parents, your mother and your father. Your dad was murdered the day you was born. Your mom, you found, succumb to drugs, drug abuse. Then you become homeless, and then you struggling and trying to find your life. Then when you get your life back, on the eve of putting everything back together, it's taken away from you all over again. So that's been one of the most traumatic roller coasters in my whole entire life. When you fully feel like you're stable and you everything is going right, it's taken away. So you deal with these calamities and this journey and not really knowing what's really going on. So now you faced in prison, and then they're saying my other thing that was always stable in my life was the fighting, the boxing. That was the vehicle. So I'm right on the track, right on first and goal to converting to being a prize fighter, or at my dreams to becoming Olympian, right? And qualifying. And that's snatched away from me. So imagine being right at the cuffs of those things, all those things. I just said the cuffs of coming into this world before you even became a man and knowing what a man was. You already had on man pants, right? Didn't know where's dad. When you realize that it's a void there, right? Dad is not here. You have to look after mom and your other siblings. And then when you understand that, mom is no longer there. And then when you try to get a hold of that grasp, now you move the goalposts a little more because now grandmom and sister is not there. So all your support team, every time you felt like, yo, I'm stable, they snatched it away. And then here I found stable and found really a sense of calm and peace in my vehicle of boxing. And it's taking me somewhere. I'm finding leverage to go, right? That's snatched away. So I never really understood that. Now I'm able to put it like this, articulate that feeling of understanding. You really don't understand those doors been shut, and even the mental trauma that one endures. Nobody, when you got a headache, you know, your foot hurt, your back hurt, you can go to the medicine cabinet and get a Tylenol. You can identify that. But nobody identifies with the mental health aspect. Everybody just talks about it and they hit you with the cliches. Oh, if it ain't rough, it ain't right. You know, suck it up. We got to go through it to get to it. You tough, right? You know, and so the human aspect of the vulnerability cannot be shown. Next thing you know, when I'm going through this emotion, I'm put in prison. So imagine those steps. You now I'm in prison when you really can't show the emotion. I'm in real gladiator school. Whereas so I never really matured in that aspect. Now I'm really everything that you're painted out to be. You're treated as criminal, and you're treated as you know, that stern side, that hardship, you know. So you got the mental aspect. So a lot of these rooms that I done bolted shut, now I gotta go into it and pry back open. And you really don't know. So that was probably one of my deepest and darkest moments, and it was. But it also, in the darkest period of your life, you realize that you have to know how to endure. You only have you. You know, when I first went to prison, I spent the whole year in solitary confinement. From the time of going right back, I was getting off the bus. They sent me to the graded for to get the number. And on my way to Camp Hill, a guy said to one of those, you know, hillbilly guards, we on the bus, we chained, we shackled. And a guy right beside me said, a woman prison guard came on the bus and he was saying, leading us off. And he said, get your hillbilly ass out of here. I'll give you something to. She says, who said that? She said, all right. And she came on the bus. She left off the bus and came back with 20 guards. And they had shotguns and everything. And they said, which one of you did it? They spitting, chewing tobacco, everything. Nobody said that. And motherfuckers all looked. And they pointed to the area where we was at, right? And I ain't saying I'm looking forward. The guy's chained right next to me. And somebody did that. And him. He said it. And I ain't, you know, like, yo, I ain't snitching. I'm thinking, get off the bus. Come on. Right? And I'm like, what? and they took me to the hole, and they handcuffs. They start beat me up. They start with butt of the gun, stripped me of all my clothes, holds me down, and threw me in a black hole for 268 days. No sound, no nothing, no light. When I got out of there, all the hair was in there, looked like a monster. My whole skin, from being no light, so light and fragmented. And of course, who can you call? You know, my parents, my family, they didn't understand that. I was the first out of my family that ever went to prison. And the ironic thing, living with my grandmother, she was a woman. She was a maid, and her mother was a maid. You know, they were sharecroppers. You know, so and she was made for the rich white people, right? And my great grandmom, she was a slave, and so my grandmom had this thing. They believed in the porcelain god and said, "Don't you give them white folks no hard way to go. Don't you do this, right?" And I'm saying, you know, Grandma, I need help, and she's thinking, I'm gonna give it to God, right? And she meant well, but she didn't have the fighting spirit in her. She didn't understand it. She didn't understand the judicial arena. You know, they were going after the name, and you know, when I told her about what was going on, she said, I don't have no money. She didn't understand. I'm first in my family. She said, I'm praying for you, you know. And they were sharecroppers. And the crazy thing, it took me back to a period in my life where I understood that at home, prior to my mom passing, I remember looking on the wall and it was pictures of Huey P. Newton and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali on our walls, right? My mom was a revolutionary. She come up in the 70s, right? But when we went to Big Mama house, Grandmama house, there was the porcelain god on the wall, the Last Supper, right? And they called it, you know, she would tell the stories of her calling the cotton picker, and how her hands and feet were hurt because she was out there in the field picking cotton. So all they knew about is going along with the people. So when you told them the story about what was going on with me, they couldn't don't you fight back, don't you give them no problem, don't you? And it was like, this is abuse. So I had to endure that. Who you want to tell what's going on, right? And so I went through that, and then when I finally got into population and finally got bearings, I started running every day and running. And the guys that knew me, they was like, he done lost his damn mind. He lost it. He going, I don't know why he running. He ain't coming home. He ain't going home no time soon. He running like he got to fight tomorrow. And I was running the whole yard from the time it started to the time it stopped. Didn't matter how cold it was outside. And I did that for a period of about 8 years, right? And running past the weight benches and all those guys. And they out there lifting weights and playing basketball. And it's crazy. And I would always just play it in my mind. So that was mental abuse. And then when I finally got out, you know, you hit with the fact of, man, what you gonna do? You here, you at the breaks of obscurity. And I got out and, you know, I performed. I really at that point didn't know what I was going to do. I just educated myself to a point I would be a part of the sport at some point in time. I didn't know I was going to do the physical aspect, I'd probably be managing or a trainer or something like that. But it turned out.
Now, when you got released from prison, how fast was it for you to adapt? Because obviously things was a little different.
Oh, it was very hard to adapt. And it's crazy. I just told this story. It's real funny. Um, a week ago, no, a couple of days ago, I ran into this third generation millionaire. And I met this guy when I first got out of prison. And I was in a halfway house. Our halfway house was a block away from a block that he owned. He owned both sides of the street. And I was walking down the street and I had the shirt on. And a guy was coming out of the office and he grabbed my shirt. So, whoa, that's a cool shirt. Where'd you get it from? So I brought it from one of these stores. I said, but I make clothes. So you make clothes? He said, you got a card? I said, no, I don't got no card, but I'm trying to get some made up. So he knew I was like different. He was like, well, what's your name? I told him my name and, briefly said, I'm going to look you up. This time, like, I'm not knowing anything about Google. He Googled me, looked me up, and my whole story came up. So the next time I walked through the block, it was like, hey, what's going on? You still at the halfway house? He said, yeah, I just got out. He said, congratulations. I want to take you somewhere. When can you be ready? So he actually took me to a game, and then he took me to an event after the game. I said, you ever been to Jersey? I said, no, probably some parts. He said, you ever been to Cape May? He said, you scared of a boat? I said, no. He said, can you drive? Gave me his keys. And we drove his Benz down to Jersey. When we got there, we enter and we get on this boat. He said, you got to be home. So now all this is blowing my mind. This is all in one day. How many days can you be going for? I ain't going for it. I gotta go home. It's in my family. Like, he's like, what's going on at home? He said, man, I don't know. They don't know. I ain't have really no cell phone at that moment. He was like, all right, well, we hung out a little more and not really understanding his intention. We hung out a little more. And then I was like, listen, I really gotta go. I appreciate it. All right, you gotta go. So, all right. He called me a black car and he took me back. Go back. Go home. Cool. So sometime later, I didn't see him. Sometime later, some time went on. And just recently I ran into him. And when I ran into him, he was with a group of associates. He said, one punch. How you been? He hugged me, blah, blah, blah. And he's telling his friends who I am. And he was like, yeah, he goes by the name of Mr. Everywhere now. He's just real, big time guy and entrepreneur and yeah. I was like, wow, I appreciate that. But I hadn't seen him in some time. But he elaborated into the time when we first met and the story that, listen, I was trying to do some things for him, but he wanted to go home. And it resonated to me. Like, I'm trying to give you a helping hand, but you want to go back to the environment that made you sick. And my takeaway from this situation is, wow, I started thinking about my journey in my life. And it's funny, I thought about Mike Tyson because it was right after the Mike Tyson fight. And I said, what would be Mike if he stayed in Brooklyn and stayed home had it not been for custom model? You damn near got to run away to make a way. He ran away from home, and this white man came and took him in and changed his whole life and gave him that. Here, this white man was giving me the opportunity, and I wanted to run back to my environment. I didn't understand it, right? And I looked at all the things synonymously that connected. And I said to myself, wow, Gillian Wallow, even look at Gillian Wallow, they had to run to Boston to get bar stools to get on. They $1 million worth of game. Meek had to run to Miami to get Rick Ross to believe in him. It's not going to come here. So you damn near got to be an orphan and run away from home to get success. And I looked at my life and it was like, wow, all the people that really successfully helped me, unfortunately, came from a different race or a different demographic that I didn't come from, you know? And this guy that vouched for me to get out, I was, upstate, and I just seen this guy. He had wound up being a referee, and they transferred me to his pod, but he was very stern, and they were like, "Yo, he's a great fighter. He's a great boxer, and uh, you know Gary Rosado. That's his name." He said he's a world renowned referee, but he ain't really. He knew who I was, but he couldn't show me any favoritism. So he watched me for I had probably about another 2 years left. And when it was time for me to go up against the parole board, they was getting ready to they wasn't going to give me a shot. He put his job on the line and said, this kid deserves a shot. He was on my unit. He said he never gave nobody else the approval. And my first time out, they gave me my shot for parole.
So you went through all the obstacles coming out, going in and coming out. How did you stay on that journey?
Tenacity and willpower. I came out, was focused, and I just knew I just really had to make a way. And I remember getting my first computer. I didn't know what an email was, didn't know how to dial because they didn't have the push button phone no more. They all had touch screens. And I would go like it was prison. I remember buying my first computer and I would lock in at 11:30, 11 o'clock. I go to the gym and then come home, eat, relax to like 10:30 and wait till the whole house got quiet and lock in from 11 to about 5:30. And that was my school. I learned the keyboard. I learned how to work the email, learned about everything possible as far as the world. Because I knew at that time the world was slowing down. That's when my time to really pick up. And then before I went to sleep, after school or being locked down, that was the same time. By 5:36, same regiment, I'll get up and run. And then when I come back, I go to sleep. And I did that for several years. And it was like, it's crazy because I did that religiously for about a half a decade. And I just remember one time just running, getting up and running. And it was real, real cold outside. I knew it was like a February. It was freezing out. And I'm running and I'm telling myself, I'm hearing a voice in my head and I'm like, why are you running? Why are you running? And that's the time when you want to run. I'm digging down deep and I'm running harder. I said, man, you ain't got no fight. What the hell you running for? And I'm like, man, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm fighting with myself. It's like two voices on each side of my head. And I just like stop. And I walked back home. I was cold. I put the blanket on. I'm shivering. And I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. And I'm trying to have this conversation with my head. Like, what's really going on? That's the first signs of the mental health. You battling with yourself. And I realized I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I realized that my life was, you know, it was cool being an athlete, but it was so many things I wanted to experience life. I didn't want it to be shallow. It put me in that same frame of mind. I was fighting with myself like, what if they take it away? What if they take it away? You know, I'm liking this too much. Every time I liked this circumstance, it was taken away. You know, on the eve of me going to prison, I found this girl, and she was, I met her at the gallery, right? I was on trial, and we started liking each other, and we were, you know, talking on the phone. And I invited her to an event right on the eve of me going to prison. I had a party. I invited her to the party, and another girl ran into her, and she was supposed to stay with me that night. So, you know, she didn't stay. And I always, from that point on, I never had the point of, I'll do it tomorrow. I had that mentality at that point. All right, I see you tomorrow. I see you tomorrow. And we didn't stay together that night. And I said, I'll get with her tomorrow. The next day they locked me up. Right? When they locked me up, I sit for about 2.5 months, 3 months, and I get bail. And I come home. When I come home, she's dead. She died from cancer, breast cancer. But I remember talking to her on the phone, and she said, you locked up? And I said, yeah, but I'll be home. She was like, when? And it was a sense of urgency. I said, I don't know. I said, when I talked to her on the phone again, I said, I'll be home, you know, in a month, in a couple of weeks. And then I remember her saying, I don't have a month. I don't have a couple of weeks. And I didn't understand. I was like, what? And when I got home, she was dead. And I always had, you know, like that feeling of, damn, every time I like a certain situation, it's always taken away from me.
It seemed like nothing is everlasting, you know, when it come your way. Let me ask you something. How's your mental health today?
It's good. I mean, I'm able to understand a lot of things, how they happen. And I'm able to fight through it now. Yeah. I'm able to fight through it. I understand it a lot more than before. Because, you know, you go through a period of time like you feel like you said, you feel like nothing's never gonna happen. And I never really understood that until maybe a few years ago. You know, it's called survivor's remorse. You deal with, you know, I remember traveling, right? And you know, they had the little camera that you would snap, and you got to get it developed, the Kodak. And I was taking pictures, and we was going to Puerto Rico, we was going to Atlanta, we was going to LA, and we was boxing. I was taking pictures, right? And I remember getting them developed and going to the corner where I was from. And I'm showing them the pictures. And one of my guys knocked the picture out, man, I want to see them pictures. I'm like, damn, man, I'm trying to, because I thought I was taking them with me. But it was the survivor's remorse. And I'm like, damn, I wanted y'all to be happy for me. But you was more and more jealous because I'm leaving. And that's when I really understood the separation that everybody can't come. So I'm learning it firsthand, right? And, you know, I've realized that even with relatives, I would go back to cookouts and Thanksgiving and different things, and I would eat different foods because it always was around the time I had to fight. So I would see cousins, and they was like, "You think you better? You think you don't want to eat this food? You grew up on it." And it was like, "Nah, I can't eat it. Not that I don't want to eat it. Oh, you don't like chicken? You don't like chitlins and pork? No, I don't eat none of that stuff. I'm training, right?" And realistically, I could have said boo, and it would have been the same thing. I just didn't understand. I had to learn it the hard way. Survivor's remorse, you know. And I realized that, put it like this, I thought that we all went to amusement park, but when you grow up and you have 8 brothers and sisters and you are living in the projects, not nobody. The only water park you gonna go to is the corner fire hydrant. Not a lot of people seen what I seen in these eyes. And when you come back and you experiencing it, I'm sharing it, but they thought you was bragging. And from that point, you just held it on the inside. Who do you want to share? When I went to prison at the height of my career. Nobody ever in the sport, only 2 people in this sport ever did that. It was me and Iron Mike Tyson. To this day, we got a great relationship. Not even Bernard Hopkins had that same feat. He learned how to fight boxing in prison. I went already at the top on my way to the Olympics. Iron Mike went at the top. No other fighter, outside of, it was another one, Ruben Hurricane Carter. We were the only 2, right? And I think about that, and I went through those same hardships in prison, as the hurricane, and it took, a white, what they would consider a white, stern, hillbilly prison guard to take a liking to me. Like, yo, he was rough on me. But then he saw that I was different. Then he looked me up and was telling his family about me. Then he started having a little understanding and remorse. Like, wow, this kid, yeah, it's crazy.
Now, when the cops had came to get you for your, you know, to bring you for your 10-year stretch, what was going through your head at that moment? Because that's your first time ever enduring something like that.
First time I was exonerated of all charges. And then they came back. And I was trying to turn pro. So I had missed the Olympics, of course, because of dealing with the legal aspect. And my money was tied up with the legal aspect. So I was trying to sign with this big promoter. I was trying to sign with Main Events at the time. So I was out there. All the money that was coming to me was through sparring. I was sparring Bernard Hopkins. I was sparring Sweet Pea Whitaker. And I was trying to make a deal with Main Events. And this guy by the name of Carl Moretti. And he was saying, like, look, I want to work with you. Are you done with the legal aspects? And then the case, if we can't sign you, if we signing, I was getting my, advance, so I'm fighting for that. So I'm like, yo, so I'm going to my lawyer, like, listen, man, they trying to sign me and I can't move forward because I'm dealing with this. He said, listen, we beat it one time, we'll beat it again. Don't worry, just focus on training and, I'll handle this. Meanwhile, I'm focusing on training and I'm trying to keep my head straight. But he's believing that, I'm having total faith in him. So I'm like, all right, because we came up off it the first time. So I really didn't have no inkling of this going a different way. So I'm calm, cool, and I didn't even really tell nobody I was going to court. So when they reinstated the charges, then hopefully it was an open warrant, they arrested me again. So then when they arrest me again, they sit for a minute, and I'm trying to get the bail. So when we get the bail, now she's dead. I'm like, wow. And they rushed the trial. You know, some people, because I'd already been out for some time. So now they're like, we don't want him to be an escape risk. We don't want him to do this. And I'm pushing them because I want to get signed. So I said, no, all right, well, we're going to push trial to November. I think I got out in September. I only got like a few weeks to get prepared, and they knocked me, and I was baptized in public, you know. So, you know, I'm all over the news and everything, and they're like, what? And what's going on? And really nobody really knew about it because I was just dealing with this with my lawyer and me, and, you know, family members. They kind of like, you know, they was, so all that stuff, it was distant, and, you know, afterwards, you everybody want to have an opinion, but nobody want to really, oh no, we ain't, you know, we don't have the money. You know, when you're trying to get bail, and we ain't putting our house up, you know, all that crazy stuff.
Now, while you're in the hole, what is going through your mind? Like you said, 268 days. What is going through your mind? Like, how do you survive?
When you're in a period like that, I really don't know. My only objective is to look for the light. I didn't know the day, the time, or even the year. It was the same time every time around. It was just dark in there, no light. And once out of the day, they slid the door open, slid the tray in, and then slid the dark. It was so dark, I'm on the ground trying to find the food, knocking away mice and rats. Didn't know if the food. I'm on the ground trying to leverage from there. One day I picked up a mice it might have been a rat. And that's how I knew. I went to go bite it, thought it was like a hot dog or something. It was a rat. And it almost bit me in my face. Food was on the ground. They was always sliding in the tray.
When they rearrested you, right? And you was exonerated, but they rearrested you. Did they have a different type of evidence, or did they tamper with evidence?
Nah, it really wasn't a lot of evidence. And not even at this point. Funny, I just seen my lawyer that handled the case. Every time he see me, he damn near like cry. And he says, man, they screwed you. And, you know, listen, any media, anything that you want to talk about, I'm open, you know. So the unique thing about this is some years back, I would say less than 3 years ago, I'm in front of 50 Cent. 50 wanted the story. He wanted to take it. He offered me a number. He had his lawyers hot on it. And I was up there. And he really wanted to do the deal. And I just didn't want to go in there. I had talked to some people, and it was like, look, you don't want to go in there sharing your story without no transcripts, you know, without no transcripts. But I met with 50 and them was like, yo, man, your story is remarkable, you know, and a lot of people. So I didn't really go into the, I just really wanted to be over. But my lawyer alluded to, like, man, you really need to come back and bring this back up because there's probably a lot of errors in this case. It is a lot of errors in this case far as with the police and everything and all these things. So I just, that's the rooms that you don't want to really go into in your life. A lot of them doors are shut. You don't want to pry them back open. It's a lot of emotional veins. You don't really understand it. And it was just, that period in time. And when I look back, even in that period of the hardships and abuse, who you gonna tell? I didn't have no family. I didn't have, all of them was away, right? And so I'm gonna call grandma and say, I couldn't get on no phone. So I couldn't even get no letters. So I know what kidnapping is like. That was kidnapped. Nobody could find me and nobody to search for me. I didn't have no family to search for me. Ain't nobody say, girlfriend say, hey, he ain't call, he ain't think. They just know I was making a transition from one prison to another. When my family finally did call, he's making a one transition. No, he ain't make it to the prison yet. They ain't know nothing about it. I'm just in somebody's basement for a year. Nobody, that's scary. That's the kidnap.
That's not unheard of. People get lost in the system because they that's what they orchestrate. You know what I mean? Your family don't know how to, call up to the prison and go beyond that security guard or whatever to be able to do that. So for you, what would you tell families right now that still have to go through that? Can't find their loved ones.
Wow, that's a deep one. I see brothers that's coming home. I just seen the brother Shakur that did 41 years just get released. And it was like, wow. And I automatically triggered and thought about my life, a portion of it. And then I said to myself, you think that the trauma of what I went through, imagine what he went through, and thank God that his family still had the strength and the willpower and the tenacity to fight for him. I saw in his daughter, and they showed a picture of her when she was a little girl, and I know the mom and the daughter, right? And she kept saying, my dad coming home. And she said that 10 years ago. And just to have that same faith and fight for him and to finally see him walk out those doors, it was remarkable. So I think the people are getting more educated now as to the conditions, as well as a lot of those things they didn't have. They didn't have video. They didn't have cameras on a block. They didn't have body cam. They didn't have the technology. So the things that I went through, nobody who can document it. When I'm getting beat with, with butts of guns and stepped on and everything, and I wouldn't know, like I could see, I'm handcuffed, and it went like I could see because they took me in the dark part, and I just felt from all angles. So the cover up, like, wow. And then you doing a hole, you not even knowing, I didn't know it was a hole at that time. I'm thinking it was going to be a few minutes. Then I blacked out, slept, woke up, it's still dark. I don't see no light. All I could do is I'm thinking my eyes are closed. They're swollen shut. So when the swelling come down, it's still dark. Dehydrated food, everything. They didn't feed me till probably 2 weeks later, a week later. So, yeah, the conditions were real bad. And I mean, I don't think I ever shared that story openly with anybody. In fact, I know it. I never shared that story. And I was saving it for my book. But yeah, I just thought this is a moment to really reflect and talk about some real in-depth stuff about conditions, mental health, human conditions, and the transformation and why you built different than somebody else. My why is different.
How you see the world now?
I don't know, man. I just, because I've been through so many phases in it. It's funny because, I think about the holidays. I think about Thanksgiving, right? And it was funny. I had a girlfriend, and she brought it to my attention. It was times that, I would go out, to different events or holidays, of course, like Thanksgiving. Your family always say, "Here, take a plate, take a plate." I'm wrapping up all these plates, and I got like 4 plates going, refrigerator. Family like, "What girl, like, man? If you don't throw that stuff away," and I was like, "Yo, come on, we going out." And I said, "Baby, it's food in the refrigerator. I got this. It's good. Let me make it for you." "Nah, I don't want that. You eat it." And I would be eating it. And after you might have leftover one day, but then it's the next day and the next day. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm perfectly insane. Like, yo, why we going out? Why you ordering the pizza and we got food in the fridge? And she like, nah. Like, you can have that. Don't eat that food. Please don't eat that food. And I never saw the difference, right? And I guess that was survivor's remorse, right? We feeling like, yo, because I come from a place of being homeless. So every piece of food I'm grateful for, I better not throw it away. And then the symptoms of learning that when you're young, when you're sitting at the table and they're like, "You better not get up and you eat it. This my food. I made it for you. You don't want it? You ain't eating nothing. You ain't getting up off this table till you eat it." Now we busting our stomach lining. Now we being overfed. "I don't want it." "No, you being picky. Eat it." So all those things psychologically affects us. And now this playing out. And I never saw that. I saw it was being brought into my relationship. And my lady is looking at me like, "Yo, you really tripping." And I look back in the hindsight like, yo, I really took her through a lot. She didn't understand. I was dealing with these things. I didn't either. And the deeper part about it was one day she ordered a pizza and we ate the pizza and it was real good. We had still, like anything else, we put it in the refrigerator with some left over. So we laying in bed and we watching TV and I'm saying, "Hey, that pizza was good." I said, "Come on, let me go downstairs and warm it up." She said, "No, Simon, come on. I'm calling the pizza place. You can have another one. It's all right. We just gonna order another one." I said, "Why order another one? We got one downstairs." "I don't want that hard. Order another one." And I realized that, like, yo, now I would just be forcing myself when we sitting at the table and we full, we still want to eat because it's food on the plate. No, push it away, put it in the doggy bag, take it, save it for later. We got a fresh pizza. No, we can order a new one. Matter of fact, I'm going to add a cheesesteak on to that. You want something else? Oh, no. And I never understood the trauma.
Because you have options now.
Mm-hmm.
You're disciplined from where you came from. Commendable. A lot of kids don't have that structure at all. You know what I mean? They really don't have a choice at some point. But now you have a choice. And it's okay. Let me tell you, it's okay to eat that cold pizza the next day, man. Warm it up real quick in the oven. I've done it a couple times. I'm guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, that pizza's still there.
Right.
What am I gonna do with that? Ain't nobody's together, so I gotta throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
I threw my money away.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. I can relate to what you was going through.
Mm-hmm.
But again, some of our significant other, our spouse, they don't understand that because they didn't grow up how you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to say when people are in your shoes. How would they be? You feel me?
My lady was throwing away rolls of toilet paper. When they get halfway rolled, she throwing away. Oh, we still got toilet paper. I'm saving soap. You know how soap get down to the low. We can make hand soap with that. Put that in.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like, yo, like all these things. And she looking at me like, yo, you tripping. She sending a half a bottle of, shower gel away. And I said, oh, this shower gel. No, we put some water in this and this thing can
Shake it
work.
up.
She like, yo, come on, where'd you grow up at? What happened? What's wrong? And I'm not understanding that, I'm going through a formality. I'm carrying these things because it's survival for me. It's totally different. It's survival. And the survival's remorse. Like, yo, how you raised and how I was is totally different. And ultimately later on it affected our relationship in a lot of different ways. And I think about it, right? That you asked me about the things that really affect you, right? And you grew in so many areas, but then in certain areas you feel like, I didn't understand. I was still tracking this mud, this shit into these from past things into this. She was stern to a point where like, she really understood it, but she didn't understand it because I didn't share it. Of course, let me take that, take full responsibility in that. I didn't share it as open as I'm sharing it now because of course, I couldn't identify it. And now that I have some type of identity to it, I'm able to talk about it a little more and in depth. And maybe she probably would have been a little more considerate in terms of, hey, look, he's going through some things, So I understand, like, yo, what would you tell a guy that's just now coming home from prison, with the changing of the time, be patient and learn and know how to really adapt. Don't try to rush it. All these steps of me being acclimated back into society and making that full adjustment. It really was some time to get the full adjustment, but then learn what was going on. And then I realized, hey, once I got it, it was a difference. It was a difference, but it wasn't easy. It was scary. And I went through a lot of adjusting as well.
What is one thing that people don't know about you, but they should know?
One thing a person should know about me is that I'm very observant and I can read a room and I'm caring, right? I'm caring and the same thing I've put out in life, I want it back. So equal reciprocity.
You have a fight coming up. Actually, two. Are you prepared?
I'm getting prepared now. I mean, preparation is the key. I actually just fought 3 weeks ago on celebrity boxing, X Rumble, and they try to make me the household name in the face of the company, and I'm taking on. I'm rising to the occasion. So we'll see. I'm getting ready.
Shouts to Damon Feldman. He's a good guy. We interviewed him a few weeks back, and one of the things that he did say, he did speak on alcohol. You know what I'm saying? He was really advocate of, don't drink and things like that because, alcohol could ruin your life. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I lost my mom to alcohol and drugs. I never drank or did drugs a day of my life, and people would say, "Well, what are you sober? What happened? What's going on?" I just saw the facts of what happened to my mom, and the interesting thing was my mom was she was like a party girl. She was like a fun girl, and I think that was a transition from the late 70s coming into the 80s. We lost in the 80s, and I always struggle with the fact of like when crack hit real crazy, right? And the crack epidemic, I was looking at I saw how it affected all my cousins and all my family, right? And I never forgot Nancy Reagan getting on TV and saying "Up with hope, down with dope," right?
I remember that.
And then she started this campaign, and in that same week, I saw 4 of my uncles being let out the house, all in handcuffs, because they were selling drugs, and I didn't see them for over a year. No, over 10 years. They were selling marijuana, out of the vanilla envelope. And I remember my aunts having selling parties, right? And they had card games, and they had music playing, and they had, hooch in the back, right? And then later on, the cops raided them, and my aunt, my big mama, being led out in handcuffs in the night robe, right? And they was charged for alcohol, right? And then you fast forward the sign of the tape to now into this generation. Alcohol is legal. They made marijuana legal. You know, they expunging those things from your record. But look at the time when I was talking about, and they made it so bad. So I looked at the government and said, anything that now they want their piece, it's the black hand. Alcohol is now being sold at Acme. Marijuana is being poured on the corner, or not even a corner store, but they sell in dispensaries. But now they got it in different, hookah shops, and they got the hookah shop. It's the new modern day crack house. They got every color on every corner store. That's the only store that's open at the late night. They got it open 24/7, and they got green, red, blue, and it reminds me of the late 90s with green tops, blue tops, whatever you want. They got all the pipes there and 4 bags of chips inside there, and they said, what you want? What's going on? And it's like, wow. But when we took our times, right, and it's crazy, I go back, I jumped a step about seeing these card games, and they were playing pity pat and tump, and they was playing for hands, and they were saying that was illegal. Now they got you go in every corner store, they got gambling machines, and they got casinos on, more casinos on every, every block, and within the 10-block radius, we got 4 casinos.
Why is that?
Because now the government finds a way, because they can get their peace. Before, they didn't have their peace. They found out they can get their peace. Whenever black men come together and put our minds together, what is that called? Organization. Whenever put together, if I have a business and you got a business, and he got a business, and said, let's put our money and our finance together, they've called it organized. And then they'll call it a ring. And then they'll call it RICO. And then they'll find a way to get us for tax evasion or something that we didn't do because we didn't play the black hand. And that's what I deal with. That's what I deal with anything. Because any type of leverage of us growing and going up, whether it is from the street or not. I had an uncle that every day he came in and he wrote numbers. And we always was ingenuity. We always had ingenuity because we had street numbers in the street. They had 2 numbers. And later on in life, they crossed over and made it the lottery. When we had a car, we didn't have a cab. They had a hackman at every corner. When we left out of the supermarket, we didn't have a car. Get the man right here, the hackman. Come on, I'll take you home. Where you going, baby? Now there's Uber. Now it's, now it's Uber. Now it's Lyft. So all these things has been things that we've been able to articulate ingenuity. We was always 5 steps ahead. Every week we went to so-and-so house and they was frying chicken and fish. They had a card game going and they had hooch that they created in the back in the tub. And might have had a few women going on upstairs, but this is how we paid our bills. We were able to make do when nothing was given to us. And I realized that in life that every time we run to where the struggle is, case in point, ain't nothing coming for us, but we want to say, oh, don't worry about it. Such and such is going to come. Look at Kamala. She said, I'm going to give each black man 20,000, help with your businesses. Because of the hardship, I understand we want to help each black man get up out of this, this poverty. Well, she didn't win. What's the 20,000? Still the vice president. Right now, where's the 20,000? Where's the reparation? But until then, everybody was under this false pretense. And I said, when she said it, I said, what would happen if she don't win? But everybody was under the pretense. Don't say that she gonna win. Oh, well, if she didn't win now, with it 20,000 in. We still gotta go back to the same conditions that we under. And this is what I'm dealing with. And I understood it. We always been going to the banana in the tailpipe. They always going to tell us about the conditions. Your hat is your hat because I allow that to be your hat. What would be able to tell me and say, no, that's my hat. No, that's my hat. And I try to take it from you. What's stopping you is you and your leverage of saying, no, you can't have my hat. It's either one or two things going to happen. You want to forcefully fight me off to get so I won't take your hat, or you going to go and put the people on me so to get your hat back. It's that simple. So when we're dealing with these people in the streets, when you leverage up and you have a certain amount of strength and they don't like what you're doing, they're going to put the people on you.